Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. This is going to be a really, really awesome AMA. We have a really, really special guest of honor tonight. This is going to be Ruthie. How you doing, Ruthie? I see you over there. So Ruthie is currently a Kenzie Academy student, and actually, I'll let Ruthie go ahead and introduce herself. Let's see. Yeah.
You could have just done the introduction. Oh my goodness, now I have to talk.
I can if you would like.
This service is provided
No, I'll go ahead and do it. Hi y'all, I'm Ruthie. I am, like Melvin mentioned, I am a Kenzie student in the software engineering bootcamp. I have been coding a total of 3 months today. Yeah, exactly 3 months. Actually, no, it is 27 days because I started coding on the 23rd. On the 22nd, I was too overwhelmed to do anything. Let's see, my background is in emergency management and public service. So tech was nowhere in my peripheral except for maybe IT, fixing, computers, everybody's computers, and turning the Wi-Fi on for my mom. But I fell in love with it just briefly because I'm a business owner and I wanted to basically build my own website. And as I was doing that, I thought about how it would be great if I could offer the same service for small business owners, especially women, minorities like me, pro bono, to do it for free so that they don't have to, because when you're starting a business, you have so many things that are coming out of pocket that, having a great website is part of your dream, but at the beginning you can't afford it. So if I can do that for other small business owners like myself, pro bono, and for them to, it's basically to pay it forward to somebody else, that would be amazing. A little bit about me. I'm a mother of two adorable children who drive me up the wall. A 6-year-old son whom I homeschool, and a 1-year-old daughter who basically drives me to tears in collaboration with JavaScript. But I adore them immensely. And I'm also a wife. If you hear the accent, I'm originally from Nairobi, Kenya. I have been in the United States since 2006. English is my third language. I speak a total of 7, and I'm learning 2 more. And yeah, that's about it. Oh yeah, and like I said, I've been coding for 3 months. I literally wrote my first string of code October 23rd.
Ruthie, and you're missing a few parts. I think one of the biggest things is you're also a squad leader of the HTML squad.
What's that?
Along with Haja and Thomas, right?
Mm-hmm. And we added Antonio recently.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a huge way of you just giving back, not just to the business owners and your community, but also our community. And we're grateful for all the help that you do. I know you're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
How many other parents do we have on the call? If you are a parent as well, can you post in the chat how many kids you have? Because I know our community has a lot of parents helping one another.
Mm-hmm.
I see you, Mia, 4 kids. Albina has 1 kid. So this is big because you all are not just doing it for money, right? You're doing it for your kids' futures, so they can have a better life. So they can have. You're also setting the example, right? For me personally, I also wasn't born in the United States. Like Ruthie, I actually came to the States in 2000. I was in middle school, but my family came from Ukraine, and I had to watch my parents' career transition when they were in their mid 40s. without knowing a word of English. And so that definitely had a big impact on my life, in terms of seeing what it's like to be like not just a teenager like learning JavaScript, like if you're an adult, you have kids, and now you have to also learn a new skill to get a job. It definitely left a big impact on me, which is why now looking back, it helped me build Career Karma today and help all of you to provide for your kids. And then your kids are going to be starting Career Karmas in the future too, helping others. So I appreciate our community being here. To jump right into the topic of tonight's meeting, it's an AMA that focuses for beginners to get their questions answered. Fortunately, we have people of all walk of life, people attending boot camps, people preparing for boot camps, considering, and the goal is for us to come together and help one another make this journey a little easier. And for this call, Ruthie being a squad leader, you probably get a lot of questions that are coming up over and over again, and you'll be able to answer those questions. We also have a few questions that were left inside of the discussions on the app that Melvin will read out. And for everyone who's on the call tonight, we want to make sure you get the most value out of it. So feel free to post your questions in the chat, unmute yourself, and let's do it. Okay, Melvin, how do we want to do this? Should we start from the app?
Yeah, let's start off with the first top question that we've received in the post. It's in the comments. So Ben Ike asks, what is the most important thing you have learned so far? Anything you would have studied more for or done differently before the program?
So for me, I've mentioned that I'd never written a string of code before I started. And on top of obviously with Career Karma, they had the Grasshopper app, and you are required to do some pre-coursework for Kenzi. And it was great, but it wasn't hands-on. I personally am a very hands-on learner. And so I would go to the YouTube tutorials and I would listen to them drone on and talk. And because it is a foreign language to me, I didn't apply the same concepts of learning a new language that I usually do, and which is I practice, I saturate myself with it, I basically obsess over it. I didn't do that. And life was happening. So, I had other things on my mind, but I wish I would have done that first. I wish I wouldn't have poo-pooed it and just watched the tutorials without hands-on downloading the IDEs, the like VS Code and all of that, or CodePen. At least try to write a string of code. If I would have done that, I don't think I would have been as overwhelmed as I was the first month of bootcamp.
That's solid. That's actually, yeah, it's actually interesting how applying the same learnings that you did with that language is like actually transferable, because it is kind of like an alien language that you're just learning, right?
It is. And if you think about it, so for example, for me, because I speak multiple languages, I think in English, I think in Swahili. I think in Swahili in my native. I actually think in two languages. So as I'm speaking to you, I am translating. So I translate to Swahili, and then I translate back to English, and then I speak. And so if I am reading a string of code and I cannot translate it to plain English, there's no way I would know what that code was talking about. And so if I apply the same, if I break it down, finding the etymology of a language and breaking down the syntax, I'm able to understand better what the code is talking about. So I'm able to write my string of code. So it transfers.
Ruthie, so what were, you said 7 languages. What were all the languages that you know how to speak?
English is my third language. I speak, so in Kenya, we have 43 distinct languages. Out of the 43, I speak my native, and 4 more, I have to count. Okay. Luya, Swahili, English, then Kikuyu, Luo, Giriama, then French, is the 7th, and I'm learning Spanish and Korean.
Okay, and you're learning JavaScript too.
And I'm learning JavaScript, I'm learning React, I'm learning
So 9, 10,
CSS,
11.
Ruby. Yeah.
That's
I'm a
amazing.
polyglot of the world.
Yeah, I want to see out of the people who are on the call, where are you in your journeys? Can you share in the chat if you're just starting out, if you're preparing for a boot camp, if you're attending, or if you're in the job search, just so we get a better idea of who's on the call with us. Okay, so we got some people in the boot camps. Sharia, she's 3 months in.
Ooh,
So we got Mia, who's she's about to start next week. We got Ben E, who is self-studying and exploring. That's perfect, Ben. I think you'll learn a lot tonight.
Yeah, I think that was his question.
Cool. Okay, and we got Rod, who finished Microverse. They're actually also, Microverse is also a YC company for people who are international. So that's awesome. Let's see, we got Iftima, or I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, starting Kenzie on the 28th. A few people who are in the pre-course, that's all right. We got day 18. Anybody here who just started the challenge or their first week of the challenge? Okay. No, I think this gives us a good idea of where everyone is at. Thanks for sharing that. Melvin, you were saying there were some other questions?
Yeah, so we also have a couple of other questions out here. So Joe Daly asks, coding seems like a solo environment while learning. Is that correct? Or are there times when you can code in a group?
That is actually a misconception. I think when we watch a lot of television and we always see the guy with the hoodie in the dark, you know, in front of a computer, and we think that's what coding is. That was the perception that I had, that I wouldn't have to collaborate with people and open my mouth and talk. And coming from, you know, a customer service and, you know, a public service background, I'd kind of gotten tired of just always, you know, talking with people and collaborating with people. So I had that misconception that coding is going to be, programming is going to be all about me by myself, not having to speak with people. I quickly learned when I joined Kenzi that that is not the case. You collaborate a lot, and the biggest part of being in the tech field is the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And it is always recommended that you form networks and relationships and never go at it alone. So our instructor always says, if you're stuck on a problem for more than 5 minutes, walk away, come back to it. If you're stuck 15 minutes, then reach out to somebody and help. Don't get stuck on a problem for more than 30 minutes. And so that misconception that you work alone in programming is absolutely wrong. It is a very community-based field of career, I think.
That's very true, and a lot of people have. I asked this question a lot back when I used to do our orientations. Just asking people how many folks they think work at companies like Uber. And the answers usually range from 10 people to like a couple hundred, when in reality they have thousands of people working there, right? And Uber is just an app that we have on our phone. It's one of the hundreds of apps that some people have on their phones, but it takes a lot. And I think for an average person, it's hard to imagine what happens behind the app, right? Which is why we created the Breaking into Startups podcast, to elevate stories of people from non-traditional backgrounds who work at these companies like Slack, Netflix, who are building these apps. And now all of you will get to build apps too. And I'm just excited to see the apps that Ruthie, Mia, Lauren, everyone else on the call is going to be building in the next in the next few years. Should we open it up? What other questions do you all have who are on the call tonight?
Do we have any questions?
There's actually a question from Rita. She asked this question earlier on the call, so I want to make sure I answer it. Rita, tell me if I butcher your question or not, but your question was, if you want to end up in a cybersecurity role, does it still make sense for you to learn engineering? And if you are learning engineering, can you transition into the cybersecurity role? Let me pull up your question just so I'm not butchering it. Okay, let me read it. It says, I'm kind of thinking about InfoSec. My plan is to get a foundation of full stack dev and then focus on info security. Any advice or info about InfoSec? Honestly, I don't have a lot of experience with like information security. What I can say is, if you're learning a new skill, you always want to make sure that you can connect and find other people who have gotten the same degree or the same experience, who are actually working in the industry and are making the salary that you want. Unfortunately, since Career Karma, we're still like a startup, we have limited resources. We primarily focused on the software engineering, design, and data science routes, because we know that those are the jobs that companies want. They want to hire people. There's a short supply of folks with those skills, and people who learn those skills position themselves to get hired. And you can find thousands of examples in each of those fields who have jobs. With information security, I would challenge you to find people on LinkedIn who have those degrees and then start speaking to them and asking them, how long did it take them to get a job? How did they learn those skills? And you should just approach this regardless if you want to do a bootcamp or not, but always ask them, always find people and ask them, like, if I go through the next 6 months of learning InfoSec, can I actually get a job at the end of it? Or am I going to just spend time learning or paying for some course and not get the desired outcome that I want?
So I actually have a question for you, Ruth.
Yes.
My name is Mia. I am just going to be getting started with Kenzie next week. I'm going to keep my intro short this time because I actually have not met many other people who are homeschooling their children while going to Kenzie. And it's the one thing that I'm a little trepidatious about is because I have an autistic kid.
Okay.
And so how do you manage the time schedule with going to Kenzie full time, your day-to-day duties, and then homeschooling? It is a really big take on. I don't think a lot of people understand how much work you actually end up doing when you homeschool your kids.
Yeah. It's the grace of God first and foremost, but time management I'm really even outside of going to school and homeschooling and all of that, time management is really, really big. Now, if you're a list person, my biggest advice would always be keep an Excel spreadsheet of everything that you are doing. I cannot emphasize enough how important time management is, even when you are going to boot camp. Things will get away from you really, really fast. A good example is the past 2 weeks, my children have been sick. And so I was, managing the sick children and going to school, and my son's schooling had to stop. And then now we have to play catch up. And the misconception of homeschooling usually is that you can just do whatever. And there are other parents who do that. However, like for me here in Lake County, our children, your schooling is held accountable. So if, let's say at the end of the school year, you have to keep impeccable records of what you have been doing. At first, when I started Kenzie, I'm not gonna lie, I was very overwhelmed. Now, we had already started a system with my son, and I had to switch that because obviously schooling was taking so much of my time. And so we had to adjust to instead of having his classes in the morning, because I attend demo in the morning, we start classes at 3. He loves that because from morning till 3 o'clock, he gets to do whatever he wants in terms of the apps. He's self-paced from morning till 3 o'clock. And then now mommy has to come and watch him doing his homework and all of that, and he doesn't like that. But I stay on him. We work together. I have been fortunate to have a very understanding community at Kenzi. And, I was, when we're doing our stand-ups in the morning, which we do, I would always tell them, excuse me, my children are with me. And because majority of the people, even those who work at Kenzi and those who attend Kenzi, are parents themselves, they are very accommodating. And that's one thing that you will love about Kenzi. They're very, very community-based, family-based, and they're very accommodating. And so my child, when I would attend classes with me, he would get bored, and he started attending classes with me. And now he's interested in STEM. So
That's really cool.
It can actually be a good thing. And he loves, because we've been building games and things like that. So he sees me build the games and he plays them and he gets so excited and he wants to do that. So this can be a really, really teachable moment for your children, and it can be a very, it's a very good bonding experience with your child. Now, is your child speaking or non-speaking?
He's speaking. He's high functioning. It's more about sensory overload is his problem. Okay. So he does pretty well. The one thing I'm excited about is giving him the mornings to himself, because we had the same morning schedule, and I just this last week was able to transition us to an afternoon schedule. And I've noticed that he sits better in the afternoon. Like in the morning, it was kind of hard to get him started and get him going, but now that we're doing an afternoon schedule, he's amazing, and he'll sit for 4 hours and do his schoolwork before he's like, okay, I'm kind of bored now.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good to know, because I have a classmate of mine. He has a non-speaking autistic, nonverbal, and he said the same thing. He said that when he changed his schedule to include his child, he noticed that some of I'm not very conversant with the shortcomings that he was dealing with, but he noticed that some of those shortcomings he was able to contain them better, because now he's also structured, so his daughter is more structured. And
I'm a little chaotic, so structure's a little hard for me. Which was the great thing about getting into homeschools, because they're like, you need to do all this, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, that has to change. But thank you so much for your answer, and thank you for being here today.
Oh, you're welcome. My
hey,
pleasure.
Ruthie, I know, I'm not sure if you're doing the learn and earn at Kenzi. I think they did put it on pause, but I'm sure you have some classmates in your class who are kind of working and learning. How do people afford to be in class and also pay their bills? I think there was a question in the chat. Do you mind kind of giving people an overview or like some ideas on how to manage that?
I think Chiria works full-time.
Yeah, I work full-time. I'm actually at work right now. But I work full-time and go to Kenzi. It's definitely a struggle. Yeah. But you have to be very motivated to get through the program. And you have to kind of kick yourself in the butt on the weekends, on breaks, to keep chugging along. Because a little misconception some people had, that there is a self-paced, but it's not self-paced like people think it is. The self-paced isn't until after you get started, and you still have to go to class during the class times, but you have the curriculum open to you except for the group projects. So, it's not totally self-paced. We have like maybe an hour of class time, but you still have to be available during all of the hours of school, because they have AMAs, they have discussions, They have times where they just want to talk to us to see, you know, how we're doing, what they can improve on, and things like that. So, you know, randomly, you'll get an instruction. Oh, we need to move class to this time because of something, or we have a meeting with this person from this company at this time. So, you know, you can't really say, okay, I only have to be there this hour, this 2 hours. It is truly an all day thing. But the good thing about Kenzie is outside of that 1 hour, the rest of the day that are the school hours, there are people there to help you. Mm-hmm. So you're not, you know, like Ruthie said, you're not alone unless you choose to be, because there are so many different resources, people in the class, coaches, facilitators, your instructor that are there to help you, but you have to tell them, you have to speak up, because we saw a lot of people leave our cohort, and some of those people, I had never seen them until they left. So, I mean, if you don't tell somebody you need help, they don't know if you're just not motivated or if you actually need help. You have to be one of those people to say, okay, it's time to get help. And I had to be one of those people that had to convince myself that it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're bringing it up, because I think something that everyone feels like is they always think that other people have it easier than them, and that's part of the imposter syndrome. A lot of people who start boot camps on the first week, especially, they feel like they're struggling, they're getting overwhelmed, because think about the drastic change. You go from just doing some tutorials here and there, maybe you watch a YouTube video, do a prep course, to now being in class. You get assignments, there's like different quizzes, and a lot of people get overwhelmed, but what they don't realize is that they don't have to do it all on their own, and the instructors are there to help them. Your friends in your class are there to help you too. And one of the things that Career Karma does is we always push you to reach out to people before you even start your boot camps, so you can have friends in those programs to go to and to share your struggles with, because everyone feels that. I want to ask if, in terms of getting back on pace, if you do fall behind, what are some of the methods to get back on track?
So for me, I've fallen behind a few times. And like Chirio was saying, it was, at first, I was very hesitant to reach out. And I was about to quit, because I was like, okay, I've fallen behind. There's no getting back to it. And my ego was at the forefront, and it was pushing me into wanting to quit. But then my ego again was telling me, if you quit, you're a loser. So it brought me back into, reassessing. And I reached out to my facilitator, and I reached out to my instructor, and one of the coaches that has been paramount in me getting comfortable with coding. And they said the exact same thing. And it was, first of all, you're not dumb. You are learning something very different from what you have done before. And when we look at your scores, you are doing very well. So you can't say that you're not getting it and you'll never get it and all that. So for me, it was, I had to dial it back and remind myself my why. Why am I doing this? What is the outcome that I am looking for by going through this bootcamp at this time with everything that is going on in my life? And when I was able to answer my why, I was able to reach out to the people. And it was a matter of basically sacrifice. I'm fortunate to have a husband who is my partner and my support system through and through 100%. And when he gets home, he has worked 16 hours. I will give him his offspring, take your children, and I'll sit and I will I'll work, I will, research, and then I will reach out to my classmates and my facilitators and so on and so forth. I haven't been able to do it alone. I cannot say that I have done it by myself. It is my village, the people surrounding me that held on to me when I was about to quit and pushed me forward. So without them, I wouldn't be able to catch up. But I had to reach out first.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to give some shout outs to people in the chat too. Kiko Green joined. So I think I shared the Zoom link in the Flatiron Squad and she hopped on. Welcome. Awesome. Melvin, did you have questions too?
Yeah, so actually I talked to Ruthie about this because this would be super valuable for everyone on this chat to hear. But it's also a question that someone asked within the comments of our post. So Kelly Fleming asks, what's the hardest thing to overcome in the beginning? And Ruthie, I know that we talked about at the beginning, since you did go and learn within a structured environment, how that learning paradigm was very difficult to just like overcome at the beginning. And what you loved about like the Kenzi like AMAs and how like different, like a one world from another. So what would you say is the hardest thing you overcame in the beginning?
I think it was myself because like I shared with you, Melvin, I came from, I went to college, so it was very structured. You have these assignments, you do the end of term, you do your midterms, and you do all of that. It was very structured. And when I came to Kenzi, it was, you have to be a self-starter. Yes, the environment, the facilitators and the family is there to help you. The Kenzi family is there to help you, but you have to be a self-starter. You have to reach out first. So like I shared with you, the beginning, I was like, oh my God, this learning paradigm is grande basura. I don't want anything to do with it. I'm done. And then I realized, okay, no, it's different, but it works. And the biggest thing is, like we just mentioned before, you have to reach out. You have to make sure that you stay connected to your community, you stay connected to your classmates, you stay connected to your village, basically. And that was the hardest part for me. I had to get over myself and just, put myself out there, put my pride down. And tell myself there's this thing that I do even now that I struggle with, negative self-talk. I don't know. I can't do it. I'm not learning. I have too much to do. I second guess myself a lot. And the minute I get out of my way during this program is when I shine. So it is important to get out of your own way. While you are building yourself up, get out of your way and allow yourself to shine.
And so what sorts of things do you do to make sure that you kind of have those, that system in place where you're actually, I'm just falling into this, negative thought loop or whatever. What sorts of things do you do that allow you to kind of get out of your own way and approach it from a different angle?
I reach out to my classmates. I have one classmate who has literally sat with me in the middle of the night. It's 1:00 in the morning and I am weeping. And he will sit there with me and he will listen to me. And then he was like, all right, are you done? All right, let's do the work now. And he would tell me all the time, no, you're not dumb. No, you get it. I've seen you go from, he was one of those people who were very instrumental. I've seen you go from not knowing how to write HTML, which is just a markup language, to actually writing JavaScript. And so the reaching out is the biggest part. I always, when I start feeling like, okay, I don't get it, the imposter syndrome is kicking in, I reach out and I talk to somebody and I tell them, hey, look here, this is how I'm feeling and I need help. And then also helping other people. I was very apprehensive when I first started, when I started the HTML squad. Tamor told me, he was like, you'll be fine. We'll teach you and you will learn. And I was like, no, I will not learn. This is too much. And he said, no, don't worry about it. You will learn.
Please don't screw with me while I'm on these calls.
And now when I'm coding, I always remember Timur saying, you'll get it. And now that I get it, it's like, oh my God, I do get it. So when I'm doing my assignments, I'll be thinking, oh, I can't get it. And then I get it. And then I see somebody else on the Slack channel for our school stressed out. They can't get it. And I'll reach out to them. I'll say, I'll help you. And while I am explaining to them the code, or while I'm helping them work with the assignment, Albina will tell you this. I will have an aha moment in the middle of explaining the code. And the more I teach, the more I learn. And
it's so true, because if you can teach it to someone, well, as you're explaining it, it forces you to question your own assumptions of what you know about technologies, or what you know about HTML or CSS, and it helps you ingrain that knowledge inside of like your mind. A lot of people, when they're starting out and they're learning how to code, they really try to like memorize the syntax, but in reality, it's about understanding the concepts, right? Like, what is the, like in HTML, like what are the tags used for? Like, how does HTML use versus CSS? And once you understand that, you can actually go on Google and get any answer you want just by Googling the right thing. But most people don't know what to Google for, right? And so if you can focus on understanding the concepts, and as you explain to others, you're basically explaining to them the concept that you understand. You don't need to remember, like, if you put a colon there, or if you like put a bracket there. You can always look up the syntax, but being able to explain it to someone is what makes a huge difference.
Even if you can explain it in pseudocode, even if you can't use the terminology, as long as you are able to explain the concept, it means you're understanding what you're doing. And then eventually the terminology will come.
Yeah. I also want to touch upon a thing where, like, sometimes when people think about like why should they become a squad leader, it does seem like a lot of responsibility, like leading a group. Ruthie, correct me if I'm wrong, but yours is at 400 now, or counting. I'll have to increase the limit because it keeps growing and growing and growing.
She's like, please don't.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
But I think there's also, do you feel like the squad also helps you keep yourself accountable, or what are some benefits of being a squad leader?
For sure. The beginning of the squad, I didn't know I didn't know anything about anything, and I only applied my own personal ideologies. That's servant leadership. So the more my leadership style is servant leadership. I'm not there to be served, I'm there to serve. And that's all I applied to my squad, or our squad. And as soon as I started the squad and people started joining, I picked up on people who are helpful and are knowledgeable. And I said, she knows more than I do. She's gonna be a co-lead. And so I was like, all right, I don't know how to do this. Could you please help me? And Haja stepped in and was amazing, absolutely amazing. And in the serving of my squad, I have become when I research for the resources, when they ask a question that I don't know, when they're talking technical terms and I don't know and I cannot participate, it made me feel really left out. And I don't know if I mentioned, I'm a last born, I'm the baby of my family. And so I struggle with that. Every single time someone leaves me out, I want to be involved. So I went and I researched and I learned so that I can participate. So the more people ask questions, the more people are apprehensive about tech in general, the more I learn and the more I'm able to serve them.
Yeah. And one thing that also helps Career Karma is we now have coaching positions that people like Haja, I know Chris, Warren, Danny, that they go through their boot camps, but they also work with Career Karma, and all of them started out being like leaders in the community and helping others. And so for all of you who are also listening, as Career Karma gets bigger, we're also always thinking like, how can we recruit our community to help others and also make sure that they meet their own career goals and become engineers, but in the meantime, they get to work with us. And being a squad leader is one of the best ways for people to kind of show themselves and get into these positions.
Sure.
Yeah. I want to take a second to talk about the discussions that we launched on the app. How many people have seen the discussions on the app or participated? Or so I know Mia shared her story, which was amazing. Have other people checked out discussions? Mm-hmm. And so this is a request from us to you, because this is a new feature that we released recently. Personally, I love reading about people's stories because there's only so much that I know about you from a Zoom call in front of 25 people. But what Melvin, I think, or someone else was saying earlier on the call, the energy you put out in the universe about yourself helps you attract similar energy and attract people who share the same mission as you. And so on the discussions, we have a thread now where Mia, she shared her story. I shared mine. Melvin shared his. We would love everyone who's on the call tonight to find some time and share a little bit about your story, right? What makes you you with the rest of the community. And I think at first some people are hesitant because there's a lot of introverts on this call. There's a lot of extroverts. But regardless if you're an introvert or you're an extrovert, you're going to have to go into a job interview, right? And you're going to have to speak to other humans. And so part of sharing your story and getting better at your story is finding every opportunity you get and practicing it. And so I'd love for people to start building those connections and bonds on the discussions by sharing a little bit about themselves and meeting others. And don't be afraid to share what your goal is and what your mission is. I know for some of you, it's to start your own company and build it the same way how Ruben Archer and I started Career Karma. You can find your future co-founders on discussions. You can find your study partners. You just got to make sure that you're connecting and building this network, because in a year from now, all of you are going to have jobs. But think about how much fun would it be if you got those jobs as you had a group of friends doing it with you, right? So it's all about building those connections. I want to see if people have any questions for me or for Melvin around just this journey. I know someone on the chat asked what technology Career Karma uses to build our app. Anyone want to take a guess? I think it was Rod or someone asked that question. Anyone
Is it React?
Okay, so Mia thinks it's React. What else? What other technologies? Ruby on Rails. Okay, so I actually studied Ruby on Rails at the bootcamp that I studied at App Academy. But no, it's not Ruby on Rails. JavaScript, we definitely have JavaScript.
Is it Python?
Python? No, it's not Python. So basically, the Career Karma app, the primary technology that we're using is JavaScript. And some of you, and I'm pretty sure there's, I think at this point, every single bootcamp teaches React. So Mia was correct with that guess. So on the front end, we're using React Native. Have people heard about React Native before? React Native is basically, it's a JavaScript framework. So in order for you to use React, you need to know JavaScript. If you're just starting out, if you do the Grasshopper app, you're actually taking steps to learning JavaScript, which eventually will help you also know React. But the reason we chose React and React Native is that now our engineering team, and even when Arthur and I first started building the app a year and a half ago, we only had to write the code once and then deploy that code to Android and iOS, right? That's a big difference than writing code just for iOS and just for Android, right? Because a lot of people want to learn, they want to build mobile apps, but if you just learn iOS, you're always going to know only how to build iOS apps. If you just learn Android, you're going to just know how to build Android apps. But the benefit of knowing React Native is that you only have to maintain a single code base, and you can deploy that code base to both Android and iOS. And if you know React, you can also build websites. So that's one of the reasons why we chose React and JavaScript. And from personal experience, there's a lot of innovation happening in the React and JavaScript world. And the smartest minds are working on creating all these different JavaScript tools. So I think anyone who's learning JavaScript is definitely heading in the right direction.
Hey, Timur, can I add something about the discussions?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Melvin and I were talking about discussions specifically earlier, and I wanted to share an insight that was brought up when we were talking. One of the things that we all deal with in coding is imposter syndrome, correct? Like everybody who has done any amount of coding, we all deal with it. Discussions is a way to help dispel that. If you can relate to somebody and you can see their story and you can see aspects of yourself in there and they talk about how they got through it or how they moved forward, those are all tools and skills that somebody else can use. Mm-hmm. You may not think on the big scheme that you're this really important person, but you never know who's going to vibe with you, who's going to understand and just really bond with you. And so by sharing your story, you're not just helping yourself to network, you're helping other people to get past the things that you're struggling with yourself. Like I can tell you right now, one of the biggest things I'd love to see go away is this imposter syndrome in tech. Yeah. I would love to see people not get in their own way, because the fact of the matter is we all start somewhere and we all end somewhere else. And it's a path and a journey, and you're constantly learning. So yeah, there's always going to be people who know more than you, but there's always people who know less. So it's one of those things of like discussions, and I'm so happy that you guys have brought them in, but just to open your eyes to people, because like I was sharing with Melvin, I have people who I've known since I started on this app. And when I shared my story, they were like, I didn't know you've been through all that. And I like had that moment of like, oh, well, I really only talk about coding when we're here because that's what we're talking about. And then I didn't realize how many people were like, man, like now I'm not going to give up, because if you can get through all that crap, like this is easy. And I was like, okay, that wasn't my intention, but I'm glad you're using it for good. Like here we are. Yeah.
And I'm so proud of our community, because so many people, like every single person has such an amazing story. And in some ways, like if you're someone who did the 21-day challenge, you're someone who actually wanted to like stick with it, right? You built a habit. By the time someone is 3 months into being on Career Karma, you probably already helped other people. Some people helped you, and you're here for the right reasons. And I think also finding out more about people's personal journeys makes that magic happen, because we're not just building this for people to get their first jobs. We want you to all come up with ideas and build your own companies, your own apps. We live at a time when all you need to build an app or start a company is just people who have the skills. And you all have the skills. Even if you're building a simple HTML, CSS page, you can do a lot with it. Think about the 95, 96 when HTML and CSS was first getting created. That's all they had, right? And so you all have a lot more tools now. And I would love for people to share their personal stories on discussions. Melvin and I, we're working very closely now with a lot of our squad leaders to get your ideas on what topics you guys want to discuss, right? A common one that came up was about portfolio projects, because a lot of people are either thinking of building one or they want to see what other people have built. And so last night we had Katiana talk about the app that she designed. We're going to have people from boot camps who come in and talk about the apps that they've built and what technologies they've used. Please send us your ideas, and you can use it, even discussions, to make requests, what you want to see. And we'll work together with you to make sure that you find other people who will answer your questions.
Yeah, and also to add to that, it's sometimes I find myself thinking about like how incredible of a time it is to be alive, especially at this point where, look at us, like we're all kind of congregating in like a virtual room where we can see each other's faces, hear each other's voices. And I've never been to Leesburg, Florida, right? I've never been to Oregon, but I'm talking to people that live there, and they have their own stories, and they all have their own personal networks as well. And so it's kind of like a very interesting time to just like collide with like incredible like minds and ideas that you don't know where these people are going to be 5-10 years from now. Like, I know just from speaking to the handful of people that I've spoken to, we have some very, very driven individuals that will accomplish everything that they want to see come true in their lives, you know? And it's really incredible just to think about like where you started right now. And by the time that you just finish boot camp, right, like you already have gained a set of skills that will allow you to bring things into this world in service of others that just help, right? And so just seeing that kind of trajectory just grow and blossom into this wonderful flower, right? Now you have this whole community like of career karma people that in general love to help each other, right? Like that's what the basis of this company is about, is people helping people. And through these discussions, like you, with every single interaction, with every single post, with every single like and comment, you're interacting with somebody that could potentially be like an ally for you down the road. You have no idea what, so with the people that will bring onto these AMAs, right? Like now Ruthie is one of your resources. She'll be answering questions in the discussions. Like she just loves helping. And so I know Mia will be up on there as well. Like she is just like that driven individual. And so it's just going to be a very like incredible time to just interact, jump into those comments, into those posts, add your stories, look at the people's portfolios and the things that they've been learning. And we'll just have this whole like gold mine of resources, tips, tricks, and the whole nine. I'm really excited to see like how these discussions turn out.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to make an announcement too. So we've been getting this request for the last 12 months. Chris Warren is going to be very happy with these news, but we're actually in the process of launching our web app. So a lot of people have been asking to have a web app. We started development a couple of weeks ago, and we're shooting to release the first version in February. And some of the first features on the web is going to be discussions, because you don't like people will be able to find them just going careerkarma.com and being able to see questions, ask questions, find information. And through this process, we're also constantly thinking like, how do we elevate the people who are doing the most good on the community? So this is not on the roadmap yet for Q1, but we also want you to have your own personal profile that demonstrates how many people you've helped, what squads you've led, how many meetings you've hosted, like what questions you've answered. So when you are applying for a job, we also want your Career Karma profile to be your resume and like kind of your face of like, hey, over the last 12 months, I didn't just do Kenzie, but I also helped 100 other parents do this, like so-and-so, right? And these are all the questions that we've answered. So 2020 is going to be an exciting year for all of us. And we're so grateful to have all of you in our community. Yeah, thanks, Flame, for, we're excited too. We have about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure everyone's questions were answered. Anybody else have any burning questions? Anything else, folks? I love everyone who contributed tonight. I love hearing Sharia's story about working full time and being at work right now and joining in. Shout out to you. I love hearing about Mia's story as well. Folks, please share it with us. Don't, if you're, I know some people might hesitate like asking questions in a big group. Feel free to also reach out to me directly, or Melvin or Ruben or Archer on the app. You can email us. But whenever you feel like you're getting stuck, it's okay to feel that. Everyone feels that, but also make yourself realize that now you have a whole community to support you, and you can reach out to any one of us for any help. And if anything, we'll just listen out to what you are going through, and we'll help you come up with ideas to get through it. Yeah. Anything else, folks? We'll be uploading this video to YouTube. We'll be sharing more resources and discussions. So please ask your questions there. And I'm so happy to see all of you on the call with us.
I just wanted to add a little snippet of the question that I get time and time again. I'm always asked what are the tips that I would share as a beginner. And so I made a list. These are my tips for managing your journey.
Yeah.
And you can apply it in general. So tip number one, time management is your friend. Utilize your resources. Number 2. Number 3, practice, practice, practice. Number 4, don't stay stuck for too long before reaching out to get help. Number 5, reach out. You're not alone. Techies get a bad rap as not helpful, but the tech community is the most helpful community out there. Number 6, practice, practice, practice. Number 7, pray. Number 8, take a deep breath. Number 9, see tip 3 and 6, practice, practice, practice. And number 10, see tip 4 and 5, reach out.
Awesome. That's amazing, Ruthie, and thank you so much for coming. I'd love to see that list of tips and discussions too for anyone who missed it.
I'll post it.
Yeah, and I would challenge anyone else who has their own tips to also make a list and share it with the rest of the community. Because we always say that Career Comma, it's free. The only request is that once you're a few stages ahead, you help people behind you. And you don't need to wait until you're in a boot camp to help people behind you, or you're in a job to help people behind you. Every single person has some advice and guidance that they can share with others. And so want to do a huge shout out to Ruthie for joining us tonight. Thank you so much. And let's break in, everyone. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying up late, fam. Good night, everyone. Sharia, everyone, Ben, great seeing you all. Bina, Flame, great to see you all. Good night, everyone.
Have a good night. Let's break in.
Let's break in.